everyone. Thanks so much for having us, and thanks so much for being here. It's an honor, and we're so excited to share with you all about the work that we do in the United States, specifically the Northeast region. So my name is Olivia Watkins. I'm one of the co-founders of Black Farmer Fund. And Black Farmer Fund was created by Black farmers who were really frustrated with the limited access to financing options that were available to them. There's a lot of racial injustice that happens in the US, and a lot of wealth inequities that happen specifically for Black food actors. And Black Farmer Fund is a for us by us model. We had 12 different Black farmers come together to make decisions on how financing should happen in New York State in 2021. So today we'll be hosting a panel, and it's going to discuss the importance of having community wealth building when addressing the intersecting issues of racial justice, agriculture, and wealth inequity. And we're going to bring in a couple of key different stakeholders that you see today. So we have some folks who are decision makers in Black Farmer Fund, and we have staff in Black Farmer Fund as well. And really our goal is to share the experience of building out our investment process and what are our lessons learned. We really want to be able to inspire you wherever you are to do something similar. So feel free to ask any questions as well regarding that or anything else that you're curious about. So before we start, I'm going to pass it around the room. Everyone's going to introduce themselves, names, pronouns, where they're based, and also what their role is in the food system and what their role was in Black Farmer Fund. So I'll pass it to you, Melanie.
Thanks, Olivia. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Melanie Allen, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm the program director at Black Farmer Fund. My role cuts across the organization. I support with partnership building, fundraising, and also our funding process. And I'll pass to Will.
Thanks a lot, Mel. Hello, everyone. My name is Will Moss. I'm a Black farmer in Western New York. My pronouns are he and him. I also, we're here in Western New York. We grow several different produce. My role as part of this system is that I was part of the original Black Farmer Funds and establishing rules and guidelines to help other farmers to receive some type of funding. Also, as a farmer, I'm part of providing produce throughout all of New York State as far as distribution and growing the produce. I will pass it to Steph.
Thanks, everybody. My name is Steph Wiley. I'm representing a few organizations. I am in upstate New York in Poughkeepsie. Originally from the city, New York City. And I own with some friends a worker-owned cooperative in Brooklyn, New York called Brooklyn Packers, which is a food distribution co-op. And also we run a farm share locally in Brooklyn to about 150 members per week. I'm also a 2022 Open Team Fellow to research Black food distribution in the Northeast. And also, I'm also a 2022 fellow through the Cooperative Fund of New England, the Co-op Navigators Program. And I'm really happy to be here to talk about what we do.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks, everyone. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and give a brief presentation on the overview of Black Farmer Fund, and just talk a little bit more about not only what we do, but the context of our work. I know there are people from all across the world, and so I want to be able to give you a better sense of some of the issues that our farmers face in the United States. So there is a vast amount of intentional discrimination that happens in the food system. So when we look at the history of farmers, specifically Black farmers in the United States, there was a period of time where there was a transition of Black folks from being formally enslaved in the South to then being freed and, starting up their own enterprises and, getting to a place of self-sufficiency and self-sustainability. And so throughout that entire period, there were lots of intentional attempts to prevent Black folks from being independent, from being successful. And at the height of, in the 1920s, we saw that there were about 925,000 Black farms in the US. And this is, the most that we've ever seen in the United States. And this was a result of, people who had been brought over from the continent of Africa to be able to share their expertise with the United States to build up the economy. Right, and now are at a point where they have their own farms. They're able to make money off of their expertise. And over the course of several generations, there was a rapid decrease in the amount of Black farms in the US. And so, this was a combination of intentional discrimination from financial institutions. So Black farmers were getting denied financing at a higher rate than other farmers. And also general hostility from, non-Black neighbors. So as a result, the number decreased. A lot of Black families left and moved. This was kind of considered the Great Migration in the United States, where a lot of Black farm families moved up north into the Midwest. And so today we see about 35,000-ish Black farms that exist in the US. So not only was there a rapid decrease and an intentional push of Black farmers out of the agricultural industry, but also there's a massive wealth gap that exists today for the people that exist within the industry. So in New York State alone, Black farmers make negative $906 a year in comparison to white farmers that make $42,000 a year. And we see this, across the different states. And again, this is very intentional. There's a intentional lack of financing options that are available for Black farmers. There was an intentional push of Black farmers out of the food system to kind of what we see today. So there are smaller numbers of Black farmers that exist. The ones that exist, we think are amazing, and we work with a lot of them. And so we're really excited to be doing this work because we can continue to shift some of this narrative into a place of abundance and uplift and highlight some of the great work that's being done. So as we went about this journey, there was a very direct ask from our community of Black farmers that there needed to be a financial institution that they could trust. There's decades and generations of proof that there were not financial institutions out there that Black farmers could rely upon. So we knew that we needed to kind of do an assessment of what are the different options that we could provide to our community. So our solution was to create a community investment fund. And what that essentially means is that we are able to pool capital and distribute it to our community in the form of grants and the form of debt. And we also are able to provide different programming options that allow us to build the network that does not exist for Black farmers. So a lot of our farmers live in economic isolation, don't have networks to be able to support them once they get access to funding. So we do kind of both areas of work. We first started the organization in around 2019, and 2020 was a year that we began to raise our first round of funding that I'll talk about in a little bit. So the three buckets of our work are investing, empowering, organizing. So through our investing work, we have a community investment fund that, as I said, pools resources and is able to distribute out those resources. We also have a community governing body, which has had many different names. So in 2021, we had a pilot community, which Steph and Will were on, and now we're transitioning to an investment committee. The second area of our work is around empowerment. So we provide technical assistance. We host community work days with our farmers. We provide business-to-business connections. As Steph said, he's doing a landscape assessment in order to determine what some of the deeper needs are of the communities of farmers. So really just making sure that, money is one step and one foot in the door. After folks get that money, do they have the resources and connections in order to be able to amplify that in their communities? And the final part is organizing. So a lot of the founders of the organization came from a grassroots organizing background, and that way of going about doing work was really important to us. And so we do a lot of advocacy initiatives that I can talk about later as well. So our new investment committee is made of several different amazing people who come from different areas of the food system. And it was really important for us to make sure that we're building out a financial institution that creates opportunities for Black food actors to have power, and power in how money is being distributed. Oftentimes with a lot of financial institutions, people who have decision-making power might not actually live in the communities that they might be serving, might not be representative of those communities. And so it's really important to make sure that outside of the staff of the organization, we have a governing body of people who are actually doing the work and who can actually be empowered to make all the decisions. So none of the staff or board can veto any of the decisions that the investment committee can make. So last year we had a pilot community with several folks. Steph and Will were on it. And this year, last month, we just elected these folks here to continue making some of the decisions. And as you see, there's a familiar face of Will who will be continuing to make decisions for the organization. So we're not just thinking about investment through, we're going to invest in as many Black farmers as possible. We're thinking about who are the folks and who are the food businesses that are making the most impact in terms of being able to achieve our mission and vision, which is building community wealth and health by investing in Black agricultural systems. So we look at 3 pillars when we're making the decisions. Community wealth building. Do you have ownership models in your business? Are you a person that can be trusted? Do you have a good reputation? What do you do for social good outside of, some of the more transactional things in your business? Do you have opportunities for leadership in your business for your employees? For ecological well-being, what's your impact on the environment? How are you mitigating waste? Are the products that you are serving to your community creating health benefits for your community? And then finally, economic justice. What are you doing to build wealth in your community? And also, is your business financially viable? Are you a coachable person? Are you interested in being able to develop and create networks with other people? And so these are the different kind of each question has different points that we go into in order to evaluate whether or not someone either meets it or is interested in meeting it. So for our pilot fund in 2020, in 2021, we raised about $1 million for our pilot fund. And so half of that was a grant capital and half of that was loans. And so we've begun distributing some of that capital. So far, 8 businesses have been selected. On the right, you see we have 8 different types of food businesses. So we have a value-added CBD product business. We have a food processing business that we work with, 2 livestock farms that we work with, an apple orchard farm that we work with, a Caribbean vegetable farmer, and an herbalist who also has a community garden. And finally, a 55-member cooperative farm that does halal meat for Muslim immigrant communities in New York. So we're really excited about being able to invest in a variety of different types of farming businesses and food businesses, because we feel like the needs in our community are so varied. And so we're really interested in being able to invest across the food system. I also just put some stats in here in terms of how we make our investment. So the average check size that we were giving people was about $76,000. Our interest rate average was about 3%, and the terms were over 7 years. we typically do deferral periods. So either people pay interest only or people don't pay for 12 months, because again, our communities are working within a large wealth gap and racial injustice. And so being able to make sure that we are providing people with patient, flexible capital in order to grow their business and sustain themselves is really embedded in how we actually give the money out. It's really important to us to not be extractive, because it just it undoes, the work that we've worked so hard to do. So the other area of work around empowerment, these are just some kind of examples of what that looks like. So we host community work days where we bring other Black farmers out onto the land of our cohort members to do different projects. So we'll support with transplanting, with weeding. We've supported a farmer with putting up a hoop house, and lots of other different tasks that might typically take them a long time to do, or they would have to hire, a high number of people to do that task. We also do site visits to just continue to check in and build relationship, continue to be there for our community as they express what their needs are. So that way we can then match them with the appropriate technical assistance providers. So we've supported people with bookkeeping, subsidization. We've even helped people file civil rights complaints against other organizations. We've also supported with communications plans. And so we are continuing to provide technical assistance that is meeting the needs specifically of our community. We also opened an emergency relief program. Our community doesn't have friends and family money. They don't have cushion. So we opened up an emergency relief program so that way people wouldn't be drawing any emergency costs out of the investment capital that was going to be creating systemic change. And so people have used this to, do repairs on last minute repairs, or to hire people in case they had to leave the farm for an emergency. And so we're continuing to find ways to, build a strong base underneath the farmers that we serve. So the final thing, what I mentioned about organizing, is seeding social capital. So we work in collaboration. We don't work in isolation. And we realize that we're one part of the broader food justice movement in the United States, but also across the world. It's been really inspiring seeing all the different movements across the world in different countries. And so for us in the Northeast, that's looked like doing collaboration and partnerships with several different organizations. So we serve as the access to capital. Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust provides farmers with access to land. They're also a part of the land back and land maturation efforts in the United States to give Indigenous people back their land. We also work with Black Farmers United. They're an advocacy organization, and they do lobbying on behalf of us. And then a lot of our new farmer pipeline comes from a couple of education training programs like Soul Fire Farm and Farm School NYC. And some of our farmers have worked with Corbin Hill in order to access wholesale markets. So being community with other organizations has been really important and pivotal to our growth. And so we're also really excited about that work. And this is our information if you want to stay in contact with us. We have a newsletter, we have Instagram. You can reach out to us at invest@blackfarmerfund.com. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and can bring back all the folks. And I'm going to just jump right into asking you all questions. So I'm going to start with Steph and Will, and either of you can answer first. So, Steph, you're really involved in food distribution and bridging the gap between urban and rural. And Will, you're a farmer. Can both of you share more about how you see yourself and your communities as a part of the larger New York Northeast Black food system? And make sure your mic is on.
So because I do a lot of food distribution and can also like connecting rural farms to city farms, like I see myself as kind of like a hub myself and Brooklyn Packers as a business, as a hub between what farmers have, but also learning what they need, and folks on another end, whether it be funders or other folks that have different types of resources for those farmers. I tend to act as a connector. Sometimes people have, some farmers sometimes have, a crop that they need to sell, and just through my work in New York City, I'm able to say like, oh, this market needs some of what you have, and so they're able to like find a connection between, a farmer that needs to like really sell some product to an organization that really needs that product, and that's part of what I do and what we do, and it's part of the work I really love to do.
And again, my name is Will Moss, Western New York. I'm part of the farm family organization, Moss Fresh Fruits and Vegetables. We've been in business for over 40 years, second generation myself, and my siblings were primarily the core of the farming business here. We see ourselves as part of the ecosystem in being producer of vegetables and fruit in which we grow. We eventually harvest and take it to market. We grow over, I would say, about 100,000 pounds of produce, varieties of greens, peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, some specialty greens in which it's very difficult for some of the community here in Western New York to find, such as callaloo or okra, which is sometimes difficult to grow here. We are a producer. I mean, we contribute. We work hard in sustaining the ecosystem here in Western New York by, growing as farmer, producing, planting, cultivating, harvesting. We take our produce to a central market, Rochester Public Market, where there's, on any given Saturdays, there's at least 20,000 customers that come through, repeat customers. We continue to build relationship with the community, great rapport. We educate them on some of the produce that we grow, the nutritional benefits that it offers. That's one way we, continue that relationship with the community and the public, and providing them good, healthy, nutritious produce at an affordable price. Definitely more than what you would probably get at a local supermarket. As part of another part of our ecosystem is we provide to major organization. Steph mentioned cooperatives, which we provide or sell a large quantity of produce that is transported away from Western New York, perhaps down into New York City, as well as east of here, which is the Buffalo area. So, and then even sometimes central New York, which is Albany, Ithaca area. So we're getting into like the logistic aspect of distributing more of our produce, growing more of our produce, so that it could reach out to several different consumers, especially those who are perhaps low income or marginal or at a disadvantage of getting produce.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm always super inspired by both of the realms that you both sit within. I mean, being a producer at your level, Will, is not easy. You produce a lot of food. Can you share how many acres you are producing on?
We will farm approximately about 20 to 25 acres every year. We work with, like I said, within the family, and there's various other local farmers that we collaborate with or have a relationship with, which allows us to work with them. They've actually helped us out as far as expanding our farming business. a great relationship that has allowed us to sustain our business and to be able to provide greater quantity of produce to provide to the public.
That's amazing. Mel, I'm going to pass it to you. So you have been at the organization since the inception. Can you share more about, as we've gone in this journey, what sets Black Farmer Fund's funding approach apart from other traditional funding vehicles, and how are we trying to continue to create pathways for shifting power?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Olivia. What comes to mind as one of the key things that sets Black Farmer Fund apart is the intentional relationship building that we do. We're a fund that definitely goes beyond being transactional, and we're very grounded in community relations. Through centering lived experiences by putting food actors, those that deeply understand these businesses and the challenges and the nuances, in a place of decision making, is truly a game changer when it comes to shifting power. Our investment process also really meets entrepreneurs where they're at. We provide technical assistance, business development support, growth strategy support. We facilitate accounting, bookkeeping, governance. We have a few investees that have more non-traditional models, such as cooperatives and collectives. And we need to facilitate this type of support because we know that money without that type of technical assistance won't be as impactful. We also provide funding that is truly informed by their needs. We have patient capital, so capital that doesn't have to be paid back urgently. We really work around each entrepreneur's capacity. We have an integrated capital approach, so it's grants and loans mixed together, and sometimes it's only grant capital if folks aren't investment ready. And we really see community members as not as risky investments, but we look at the risk of not investing into community. So we're really committed to funding that will actually set folks up for success versus potentially putting them in a more compromising situation. And I think that's what really sets us apart from more traditional funding vehicles. Our investment guidelines, as Olive mentioned, centers economic justice, ecological impact, and community wealth building. So really focusing on that social capital piece is a big part of our process. And our funding process is also very responsive. Because we center relationships, we're able to hear directly from the entrepreneurs what's working and what's not working. An example of that is last year, after folks got their initial checks, we started receiving inquiries and requests for support because folks were dealing with housing insecurity or landlord issues, and we didn't want the initial funds that we had given them as part of their investment to have to now go towards these Band-Aid solutions, because we knew that it had other intentions to go towards their business development. So we established a new pool of funding specifically for emergencies for our investees so that they could be able to respond to these urgencies while also focusing on their larger growth plans. And the second question was how we're creating pathways for shifting power. I think we do that through a lot of ways. An example that came up last year that we're continuing this year is we established a new fund, a rapid response fund that is community-led. And this was in response to recognizing that there are a lot of urgent needs that Black food actors are experiencing. And our larger funding process that requires a lot of relationship building and due diligence wasn't able to be as responsive to some of those urgencies. So we have a specific fund specifically for rapid response emergencies, and that's also a community-led fund. So we have 3 community members from our pilot community, one of our investees, and someone that applied for funding that came together and established a decision-making process and application process to respond to these needs. And over the past 6 months of this fund being in establishment, we've been able to deploy over $40,000. So that's really exciting, and also another impactful way that we're really learning to adapt and respond to community needs.
Thanks for sharing that, Mel. Okay, Steph and Will, I'm going back to you. So you were both in the pilot community, which was the first kind of attempt at doing a community governed investment fund for Black Farmer Funds. So it was definitely a journey. Can you share a little bit about what it was like being in that space, and Will, I would love to hear it within your answer, like why you decided to be on our investment committee, our second kind of iteration of that as well. So either of you, feel free to go.
Sure, Olive, I appreciate it. It's been about 2 years since Black Farmer Fund was established, and I was part of the pilot committee, and it was a completely whole new experience for me. And having gone through it, I mean, I'm glad I did. It was a wonderful um, impact on me as far as my growth as well as our family farm business. I felt like it was truly a worthwhile established organization to help Black farmers in receiving financial funds or some type of, any support, technical support, farm site visits, which I've been a part of, where we would go out to various farms and providing a helping hand. Um, so I thought that was very, very amazing. It was interesting, and it was a wonderful thing that Black Farmer Fund was able to provide. Through the entire process, the pilot committee, I thought it was interesting where a group of us, we got together. I think there were several, maybe 12 of us, where we would meet ever so often. We would interview, or we would review applicants' information and determining how we could provide funds to them in various terms or ways and things of that nature. So that was quite an experience. We did some one-on-one interviews with applicants and making sure that we would be providing their needs and helping them to sustain their business or grow their business or provide emergency relief as needed. Our farm, Moss Fresh Fruit and Vegetable, we were a beneficiary of the emergency fund that Mel spoke about. We received $10,000, which actually helped our business production last year, farming production. We were able to purchase farm equipment, a brand new tractor, a transplanter, in which allowed us to plant more plants and to grow more produce. So that was living the experience of being a recipient of what Black Farmer Fund offered. So, and as far as wanting to be a part of the investment committee, I mean, having experienced everything that we did, or I have, with Black Farmer Fund, I felt like, this was a great organization that I definitely wanted to be a part of. Being a farmer, having gone to various farms and see what they did, and also how we could be supportive, I wanted to be a part of that decision making. And I felt like, with my financial background and my experience as part of being the part of the Black Farmer Fund, that I would be instrumental in helping shaping the future of Black Farmer Fund.
Thanks, Will. Sounds awesome. Yeah, I would say, as a person who has, I help develop cooperatives also. So, and I'm a founder of two co-ops, one being the food distribution co-op, Brooklyn Packers, but also a farm co-op in rural Massachusetts. I'm used to making decisions with people. And I'm also used to it being also not being that easy. But what I will say, which I think was very different for me, is making decisions, like financial decisions, for someone else and for somebody else's organization, that I was not part of the outcomes. And I think that experience, because we did build a lot of the policies and also the guidelines from the ground up, making those types of decisions, it's very important that you put yourself in other people's shoes, and think about like, okay, what would this be good for me if I was in these organizations' shoes, and also it being very intentional and deliberate and unrushed. And I think that experience for me in terms of like really making decisions that are going to financially impact someone's life, it's not it's not an experience that I've had before, and that experience showing me that it is possible for people of color to come together and make these really impactful financial decisions for other organizations, and at the same time it not being purely transactional. And I think that is what sets it apart from other lending organizations, and the fact that Black Farmer Fund doesn't hand you a bunch of money and then disappear on you. I would say that a more family and supportive vibe is weaved in through the fund from beginning to end. And actually, there is no end. There's actually just a continuing relationship that exists in whatever level that you want to be, and or wherever you come in with the Black Farmer Fund. Some of us we're part of the pilot community. Some of us are part of the investment community. I myself am still involved with Black Farmer Fund through fellowships. And so I feel like I haven't had a felt difference between whatever level of and whatever relationship I've had with Black Farmer Fund. It always feels the same. It always feels like family. And so I think that's very important, and a very different way of looking at how we can like take care of ourselves through finances.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that, especially the relationship building part of what we do, because at the core of our operations, right, we have a transactional organization, and we've added on a layer that is relational, and making sure that that relational aspect, oftentimes takes priority over the transaction. And so in the case of the pilot community, sometimes that meant that we had to delay decisions because we didn't have enough information, or we wanted to build more relationships. So can you, if either of you would be comfortable speaking to, I guess, the importance of being able to move more so at the speed of trust, and like what that even means, and versus just trying to get things done and rush through transactions, but really taking the time that's needed in order to make some of these decisions, and how that was beneficial to not only the outcomes of the decisions, but also just the overall shifting of power that you all did.
I'll go, Steph. I think being able to, as Steph and everyone else mentioned about being transparent and, establishing a relationship with the applicants, having them to have a sense of comfort of who they're speaking with. This Black Farmer Fund is here to support Black farmers and organizations and entrepreneurs. And those people, if they look at us, they see familiar faces, they see this comfort, they see the sense of trust, in which automatically that's one less hurdle, or concern that they may have. We can identify with them, especially being part of the pilot committee. Being a Black farmer, I can definitely identify with some of the Black applicants and some of the needs that they are inquiring about, or obstacles or concerns or bumps in the roads that they're experiencing. So in some instances with some of the applicants, we've actually provided some financial assistance in the way of child care support, or any other means that isn't really, may not seem to be associated with the farming or the business, but providing that underlaying type support allows the farmer or the business entrepreneur to focus on the core of the business. We seem to be very encompasses we're pretty much involved with everything that pertains to the life of the applicant or the business or the farmer to try to support them in many ways possible, and providing without them having to go through some major hurdles as if they were to go through a normal credit processing way. Our our way of providing the financial support to the Black applicants is much simpler and easier for them to receive funding.
Yeah, I would say, it kind of like reiterating what Will has said. Will is a farmer and can see to the needs of can see the needs of that the farmers who have applied through Black Farmer Fund, what they are. And, applying for money to a group of people that look like you is really a big hurdle. Like this, just on a very basic level. Like when people look like you tend to be more comfortable. But then the step further is, you're presenting this information. Your financial information is being presented to a group of people that actually really care about the outcomes, because we've also have lived experience that is similar to you, and that's another hurdle. And then, you take it a step further and, you have all these other resources embedded in the relationship. Like Will said, $10,000 for a tractor, quick turnaround. Where are you going to go in your neighborhood to your bank to get $10,000 for a tractor so you can continue production or grow production? Like you can't do that. Where are you going to go to get help for childcare? You can't go into your bank and ask them for help with childcare. Like you can't do that. So I would say that, like, sometimes the relationships through Black Farmer Fund are deliberate because we want to be able to do those types of things. We want to slow down and really be deliberate about the decisions that we're making. And I think that benefits everyone. I really think it benefits the future of Black Farmer Fund and also the people who are applying and getting technical assistance. And I think that's very important. Best decisions are most times made with intentionality and thoughtfulness and time.
Thanks both for sharing that. Yeah, you're totally right, Steph. You cannot go in the bank asking for childcare support. Melanie, I'm going back to you. So, you've seen it all. You saw the lead up to the pilot fund. You were part of that. All the like ways that we kind of had to pivot along the way. And then, you're also now part of the lead up to our new fund, which we'll talk about in a bit. And the new kind of round of funding that we'll begin deploying. For any organizations or individuals that are in here that are inspired by our work and would want to do something similar in kind of where they are, what are questions that people should be considering as they build out community governed pools of funds?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think the first thing that comes to mind, which builds off of what both Steph and Olive are talking about, is the importance of partnerships. We had really great values aligned investors, which made it possible to move at the speed of trust and move at the speed of relationship building and have time and spaciousness to pivot when we needed to pivot. So being able to work with folks that are invested in your mission and really seeing social capital as a return and understanding all of the nuances that come with when you're trying to do something different and create something revolutionary. And then along the lines of partnerships, also collaborations, recognizing that if you're an investment fund, that's probably just one of the many gaps that exist for the community members that you're serving. And that's really one of the intentions behind working with other organizations that focus on land acquisition, that focus on food distribution, that focus on the farm education piece, because all of those aspects are critical for Black farmer success, for farmer success, but we can't do everything. So being able to really have your niche, but then work collaboratively with values-aligned organizations that serve similar communities will really make the work more holistic. Something else that's really important is creating interdependent networks. Olivia shared a little bit about the intention of our community work days, and we really take a lot of time and space to create relationships amongst our investees so they can support each other. So the intention of our community work days are for our investees to host each other on their respective lands to help with big projects. So a project such as a greenhouse build, which might take a farmer on their own weeks to build, might take 3 days when you have 10, 15 farmers together that all have skills and are able to work collaboratively on this type of project. Create space for reflection, learning, and revisioning. We spent 3 months after our initial pilot phase reflecting with our pilot community members, getting feedback from them, getting pain points, lessons learned. So we really center adaptive leadership, and there are quite a few changes that we are making for our next funding process to make it more balanced for both staff and our decision-making body, and also more responsive to the folks that are seeking funding. And think intentionally about governance. Who's going to be making decisions? When we were thinking about our next funding cycle and who was going to be on our investment committee, we made a really intentional effort to have a mix of historical knowledge. So we had certain spots that were held for our pilot community members to continue being on the investment committee because they had all of that experience from being part of the pilot phase. We had specific spots for our investees because they had that lived experience of going through the application process. So they have a different perspective than a pilot community member when reviewing applications. And then we also had specific seats specifically for folks outside of New York because we expanded our funding from our pilot phase that was specifically for New York to now being able to serve Black food actors across the Northeast. And we wanted to make sure that we had representation from different geographies. So thinking intentionally about who's going to be actually leading decisions is really key when you're building out a community governance process.
Thanks for sharing all those helpful tips to folks. So this is my final question. And I believe, Steph and Wiley, you kind of already spoke on this in different ways, but you all kind of came from different experiences with community decision making, and then went through this process and are continuing to go through this process. So if there's anything that you haven't mentioned already about what you learned about community decision making specifically that you can share with the audience, we'd love to share that now as our closing comment before we move on to the next part.
If I could just add, the whole experience was very informative, educational, and very supportive of the applicants at the time, now our investees. It was great to conduct one-on-one interview with them, to get to know them beyond receiving their financial statements, trying to determine whether they were going to receive funding. But that's one thing that I really did enjoy, is that we did an in-depth, we did our due diligence and getting to know the applicants and the investees at the time to make sure we could be very supportive in what we provided to them, whether it's technical or financial or funding. And then later on, as Olive and Mel mentioned, being able to go to the site visits and lend a helping hand, especially us as a community family, in which I felt we built wind tunnels, we dug ditches, we transplanted, we did a whole lot of things just to show that we are them and they are a part of us, and the support that we provide to them.
I would say that it's very special to be in a group of your peers making decisions in this way. I think that being able to listen to the opinions and positions of 11 other people, which a lot of times you're standing in your own perspective, and being able to like hear other folks' perspectives and opinions, and through their own lived experiences is a very special experience for me. And a lot of times, it's allowed me to like rethink things that I was sure that I had, a position on, and also hearing other people's experience in the same things that I've experienced has been really helpful to like the way that I think about farming, to the way I think about business, to think about the way I think about relationships. And I think that's been a very important experience. And I'm happy to be able to like call, everybody that I've been on this journey through Black Farmer Fund with as friends, and feel like really blessed to be able to continue in this way. Thank you.
Yeah, we're super blessed and honored to have you, Steph. Okay, so we are about transitioning out of our panel. I know that soon we will be transitioning into a Zoom room for further Q&A and discussion. I do see that there are 2 questions in the chat already. And one of the questions is actually related to our kind of closing and call to action. So I'll answer that one directly, and then we can transition into the Zoom room for the other question and any other questions that you all may have. So our call to action is really that, we are transitioning out of our pilot fund and are super excited to launch another fund. So we just launched a new fund in December, where we will be raising $20 million for Black agricultural businesses. And this is just a continuation of what we've already done so far. And so we're really excited for the investment committee to have a larger pool of capital to make decisions and continue to build that capital and build that power in the community. And the way that we will be raising this fund is through a mix of donations or grants that organizations or individuals are interested in, or through taking loans. So we'll be selling loans in the form of notes. So if there are folks that are interested in donating to the fund, which is called BFF Fund 2.0, you can reach out to invest@blackfarmerfund.com. And if you are interested in the notes, you can also reach out to invest@blackfarmerfund.com. And so we accept investment from unaccredited investors. And what that means, there's terminology around that is related to the US. And so if you're in the US, we only accept investment from US only folks. And those unaccredited folks have lived experiences in the community. And then we also accept investment from people who are accredited or other institutions. So if you want to learn more, specifically the person with the question about people, pension funds, or groups in the US, you can reach out to us at invest@blackfarmerfund.com, and I can share kind of what our offering is. And we mainly focus, Karen, on working with farmers in the Northeast region of the US, but more than happy to put you in touch with other funds that might work with folks globally. All right, so I think Clara's going to now share the Zoom link in Crowdcast. And for those of you who are interested in staying more to chat with us, and we'll answer your question out in that room as well. So thanks so much for your time and energy, and we hope you're able to get something beneficial out of this.